What's unfolding right now is not a normal winter storm. Winter Storm Gianna just completed one of the most explosive intensifications meteorologists have seen this decade, with its central pressure plummeting 30 millibars in 24 hours. That's 25% beyond what defines a bomb cyclone, and it happened at a latitude where these systems almost never form. We're talking about a storm that developed off coastal Georgia and exploded into a full bomb cyclone in under a day, affecting over 240 million Americans from Texas to Maine. Here is what makes this so concerning. This system formed exactly where forecast models said it would not. The Air Force had to deploy a Hurricane Hunter aircraft into this developing storm, which almost never happens for winter weather. That is how uncertain forecasters were about what this storm would become. The snowfall totals are absolutely staggering across the entire southeast and mid-Atlantic. Faust, North Carolina, recorded 22.5 inches. Charlotte picked up 11 inches, tying a record from 1880. Tennessee got hammered, with Pigeon Forge and Jonesboro both recording 13.5 inches. South Carolina's Fingerville saw 8.4 inches. Even northern Georgia picked up 7 inches in Mount Airy. The coastal areas got hit the hardest. Pelletier on the Crystal Coast recorded 19.5 inches. Bath in Beaufort County saw 17 inches, their first foot of snow since 1958. Newport recorded 15 inches, their first foot since 1989. New Bern shattered their city record with 12.5 inches. Temperature records fell from Ohio all the way down to Miami. Miami International Airport dropped to 35 degrees, breaking a record that stood for 116 years. Palm Beach hit 31 degrees, also breaking a record from 1909. Orlando fell to 24 degrees, the coldest in roughly 90 years. Columbus, Ohio, dropped to -9 degrees, breaking a 22-year-old record. New York's Islip hit 0 degrees. The wind chills were brutal across multiple states. Chicago hit -36 degrees. Asheville saw -27 degrees, with gusts of 50 miles per hour. New Orleans dropped to -14 degrees. Atlanta warned of wind chills from -10 to 5 degrees. Drop your location in the comments right now and tell me what the current conditions are like where you're watching from. Are you dealing with lingering cold, snow on the ground in places that rarely see it, or have things started to moderate? This storm produced truly bizarre phenomena. Gulf effect snow reached as far south as Sarasota, Cape Coral, and Fort Myers, Florida. Tampa Bay saw flurries for the first time in 16 years. Cold-stunned iguanas were falling from trees across South Florida. One company collected 2,500 iguanas in 2 days. The storm reached into Canada, with Dover, Nova Scotia picking up 11 inches. Environment Canada issued warnings for Newfoundland with up to 20 inches forecast. The Bermuda Weather Service issued gale warnings as the system passed by. Now, here is what is coming next, and this is critical. The most extreme cold is going to gradually moderate across the eastern states over the next 7 days, but we are far from done. There is potential for another significant storm system to track along the eastern seaboard around February 12th through 15th. The models are showing poor agreement on exactly where that would set up, but it is something we are watching closely. What happens in the next 2 weeks could be even more concerning. We have a confirmed stratospheric warming event entering its early phase right now. Forecasts are showing a polar vortex split and collapse in mid-February. AccuWeather's Paul Pastelok is warning that the polar vortex will keep the freezer door wide open during much of February, with more winter storms likely. Here is the critical part about the next 14 days. There is a fundamental disagreement between forecast models right now. Statistical guidance suggests widespread cold outbreaks across most of the lower 48 states during February. But dynamical models are showing much warmer conditions, particularly across the southern 2/3 of the country. The next week brings gradual temperature moderation in the east, But the pattern shift brings precipitation to the Pacific Northwest and Intermountain West. The Southeast may actually see 70s and isolated 80s as the warm-up progresses. But do not let that fool you. Around February 8th through 11th, we are watching for an extreme cold outbreak that could be even more intense than what we just experienced. The European model ensemble shows over 40% probability of 4 or more inches of snow across the interior mid-Atlantic and Northeast around February 12th through 15th. If you found this breakdown helpful, especially with everything developing over the next 2 weeks, make sure you are subscribed and have notifications turned on. We are tracking multiple developing situations, and having real-time updates could be crucial for planning and safety. The mid-February polar vortex disruption is where things get really interesting. This isn't speculation, it's a confirmed stratospheric event. However, there is uncertainty about how it translates to surface weather. The Madden-Julian Oscillation may temporarily shield the central and eastern United States from the full impact, but that connection could re-establish in the last third of February and early March. What we are potentially looking at in the next 2 weeks is this. First, a brief warm-up across much of the eastern United States early next week. Then, around February 8th, another potential extreme cold outbreak. The models disagree on intensity, but the pattern supports significant temperature drops again. The 14-day outlook shows continued uncertainty. The ECMWF and the GFS models disagree on jet stream positioning and storm tracks. The Weather Prediction Center is using a blend of 40% ECMWF, 40% GFS, and 20% Canadian models because of this disagreement. Send this to anyone who needs to know what's potentially coming in the next 2 weeks. The polar vortex collapse could deliver another round of extreme cold in late February, or atmospheric interference could mute the signal. Either way, this winter pattern is far from exhausted. Flight impacts have been massive. Over 2,500 flights were canceled on January 31st alone. Atlanta's airport had 500 cancellations by mid-morning. When you combine ongoing power outages with Nashville Electric Service telling customers they will not have full restoration until February 9th, that is, 2 weeks without power in dangerous conditions. Are you prepared for what could be weeks more of dangerous cold and potentially more winter storms? Let me know in the comments what your biggest concern is for the next 2 weeks. The confirmed polar vortex disruption means we are likely not done with extreme weather. The pattern we are in suggests February could bring additional rounds of severe winter weather across large portions of the country. What makes this particularly concerning for the next 14 days is that we are dealing with a pattern that is not weakening. The Arctic sea ice is at record low extent for this time of year. Gulf of Mexico waters are still running around 72 degrees. The atmospheric setup that created this bomb cyclone is still in place, and the confirmed stratospheric warming could amplify it even further in the coming weeks.